Next talk is complying with new effluent limits for chlorodibromomethane and dichlorobromomethane. David Rice and Adam Vogel will be speaking. David joined the M.U.A. in 1992, working in a lab and developing the industrial pretreatment program. David currently oversees lab operations, the industrial pretreatment program, the whole waste program, and all surface water compliance matters. Adam has been with M.U.A. for 19 years. He started as a plant operator in 1998 and was promoted to shift supervisor in 2002. He became lead operations supervisor in 2015. Adam holds S4, C4, N3, and boiler operator licenses.
Thank you. Good morning. Before we get started, if you're one of the lucky ones that got a handout, congratulations. If you didn't, you can still get one. You can go to NJWEA.com right now if you want to, and you'll see a link on there that you can follow to get a handout. It has a little bit of additional information. Out of curiosity, is there anyone in the room that is dealing with or soon will be dealing with new or lower limits for bromodichloromethane? It's only a couple. Has anyone recently had to deal with a chlorine limit that's lower than 0.1 ppm? Okay, most of you are very lucky then. But hopefully there'll still be some useful information here that you can take away if you're considering making a change to your chlorination, your disinfection. What you're looking at here is our main treatment plant. We have two treatment plants. The secondary effluent from both treatment plants meets right here before tertiary treatment by disc filtration, and that's the application point for our disinfectant. These are our north and south contact tanks. There's the ECCT, post air, and that's our compliance point, the cascade. So our new permit became effective on April 1st of 2016, and sometime around 2014, our permit writers reached out to us and said, hey, you're going to get a new bromodichloromethane limit. We don't really know what it's going to be just yet, so over time we learned what it was going to be. And we had 20 years of data because we have our industrial pretreatment program. We had 20 years of data, and we looked at that and said, wow, there's no way we're ever going to maintain compliance on a consistent basis if we don't make some kind of change. So at that point, we embarked on some sampling. Oh, I almost forgot. This little gem was hidden in the permit too. Permit writers didn't happen to mention that to us. Yeah.
We had that.
Yeah, isn't that great? You're right at the limit with that colorimetric method. And so, we spent about a year playing with low level, and it didn't go so well. So we embarked upon about a year's worth of sampling. Even though we had some data, we picked about 7 sample points just upstream and a bunch of sample points downstream of our chlorine application point. We were sampling for things like the VOAs to see exactly when and where and how they were being formed and whether they would dissipate. They did not. We also were sampling for UVA, which you convert to UVT, so we could get a sense of how well we might do with UV disinfection. And we looked at some other parameters that might be helpful, TDS, TSS. So while we were doing that, UV was looming large in everybody's mind. Okay, you're probably going to get UV. If you have to step away from chlorine, you're probably going to wind up with UV. Okay. Well, we continued though to look at alternatives, and we considered chloramination, and we went and visited a plant that was doing it. It worked well for them. But looking at it and thinking about it a little more, we decided, that's not really for us. That's not really a good fit. Now we're dealing with 3 chemicals instead of 2. How are we going to paste that, flow paste it? It wasn't for us. So at that point, we had been working with P.A.A. as a consulting engineer, and he said, there's this other alternative you should really consider. It's relatively new in this country in the wastewater industry called peracetic acid. And we all, I think, collectively, our reaction was something like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how big our UV system's going to be. Right? So, but as we started to develop the data, our UV data was coming in, this once-a-month sampling, and we were getting low 60s, which we kind of knew already. We knew that we had bad UV transmittance. So we thought, well, okay, but I guess we're going to have to put that on the back burner. And like I said, chloramination, we had already decided wasn't really going to work out for us. So here we were, left with this stuff that we didn't really know much about, the peracetic acid. So we, working with P.A.A, we approached Peracetic to do a bench scale study. That was completed in October of 2016, and it went really well. They said, yeah, with a target dose of 1 ppm and detention time that you're likely to see at your average flows, we got great log reductions. They knew our limit was 126 as a monthly average, geometric mean, sorry, for E. coli. This stuff's going to work great. We said, great, super. Let's do a full-scale pilot study. Our plant superintendent, Joel, couldn't be here today. He said, you guys might be used to doing a little 6-week trial. We're not interested in that. We want to see what happens across seasons, see if there are any seasonal variations. So he said, let's move forward with a 6-month trial. Okay, great. Line up the equipment, let's go. Well, not quite so fast. First, there's the matter of getting approval from DEP. Kidding, right? I don't think they really had some places, but they were actually really helpful because our friends up at Berkeley Heights had already gone through this process of developing and submitting and getting approved a work plan. So we continued to work with P.A.A, and it took a little time, a little bit of back and forth with DEP. We got our work plan in place, and by July, I think it was July 11th, we turned off chlorine and turned on peracetic acid. Adam, sorry, I was going to need to talk to you about this a little bit.
All right. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. Right now you see here we have two 330-gallon totes of peracetic acid sitting on 500-gallon containment skids. One thing to note about these totes, on the top it has a cap, and in that cap is a breathable membrane. And what we noticed was if you don't loosen the inner cap, these things will actually start to collapse. So that's something to take note of if you ever have this system. Make sure you crack the inner ring there, or this tote will start to collapse in on itself. Now, if you notice here, the online tote flows into this common header. This common header feeds a suction line that goes to the online peristaltic pump. One thing to take note of is here, here, and here. They're pretty hard to see, but they're relief valves. Anywhere in this system where you have the potential to trap this chemical, we have relief valves, because this can off gas and cause some kind of explosion if it reacts with organics. So we'll go to the next slide. As it flows out of this common header into the pump area. Inside the pump enclosure, you have two Jesco peristaltic pumps from Flow Motion. As part of the package, they came with inverters. These inverters take a 4 to 20 signal from our flow meter that combines the flow from both treatment plants and sends a signal here, and the flow pace is based off of that and a 1.0 part per million dosage rate that we came up with for the peracetic acid. We've had it as high as 2. Right now it's 1, and we're meeting all of our requirements with that limit. It gives us about 20 gallons a day of usage of the peracetic acid. We used over 100 of chlorine and about 50 of sodium bisulfite before we switched over to this. Now inside of this housing here is where the tubing is. That's 1/8 inch flow-preen tubing. That is changed every 30 days. The manufacturer recommends every 45 to 90 days, but we err on the side of caution and change it to 30. And so far we've had no issues with breaking, leaking, anything of that nature. Also inside of this housing is a sensor for any kind of leak. So if you get any moisture from a line break, it'll automatically shut off the online pump and close the valve, and turn on the offline pump and valve, which would allow for continued operation. Now, speaking of the tubing change, this graduated cylinder here is used to measure the flow after a tubing change to verify that it's still where it should be based upon all the guidelines in the manual. Again, you'll notice anywhere there's a choke point in the system, we have the leak valve, and that's important. We haven't had any issues, but we have heard stories that this has occurred. And when it leaves this area here, it leaves through a 1/8 inch stainless steel line that runs up the side of this building and to this point. This is the discharge from our tertiary treatment or disc filter. The product drips into here, combines into this pipeline, which runs along here back to the beginning of our contact tanks. I'm going to give this back to David.
Thank you. Okay. Wrong way. There we go. So, we've been running this since July 11th, right? Part of the work plan was to analyze, I think they only required a few parameters, DP, in the end. Obviously, the main concern was bromodichloromethane. So that we did twice a month during the study, and of course, E. coli. You'll see, sorry, you'll see the various sample points. There we go. Right after the disc filter, and then at the end of the first set of contact tanks, at the end of the second contact tanks, and here right before our final effluent. So the data I'm about to share with you, we generated there at sample point 4. We chose not to do it at our compliance point. We didn't want to generate a ton of extra data that would wind up on the DMR. So we did our normal compliance monitoring and then did all this additional monitoring upstream. So, you know, the big question is, how did we do? And in general, we did really well. What you're looking at here, and I'm sorry, it's hard to see the difference in the colors. There we go. So this line here, that stays pretty steady. That's temperature. So, you know, we sort of noticed anecdotally that as we got into some cold weather, our E. coli's were going up, and we were wondering, you know, what's that all about? We talked to Peracetic, you know, have you noticed this? Because there really aren't. There's a plant in Minnesota, is it? In Minnesota, that does peracetic acid disinfection, but it's all enclosed. It's indoors, so they don't see this effect. So, you know, we thought to look at it against a couple of different data points, and temperature seems to be the one that most affects it. We don't really see much variation in our BOD, TSS, TDS, DO, ammonia, things like that. So it can't be explained that way. It could be synergistic. We don't know. We don't have enough data yet. But it looks like it is somewhat temperature related. So that's the E. coli. We did fine there. And the bromodichloromethane is not an issue at all. It does not form. It's been non-detect the whole time. We've done 3 bioassays now since we started. We're waiting on the results from the 3rd bioassay. The first 2 bioassays, they were dual species, chronic and acute, thank you, DRPC, and no effect on any of that. So toxicity for us, anyway, is not a concern. What we did see that was a little different, that we're not used to, is this growth in our CCTs and our post-aeration tank and in our cascade. We're not used to seeing this stuff. There's a close-up of it. Here's what it looks like when we catch it and put it in a beaker. So we sent it to a microbiology lab that we're working with and asked them to give us some idea of what we're dealing with here. And we're just getting started with this. So under a microscope, they said looks like you've got some fungal growth in there, looks like you've got some algae. We're still not sure exactly what it is. And we also think that this may be seasonal, because we started this trial on July 11th and didn't see this material growing until October-ish, September, October. And then we just noticed in the past week, maybe, that it's not there quite as much as it has been, as it was through the winter. And we're sort of scratching our heads about that. We don't really know what to make of it. That's just something we're going to have to follow and see. We don't have any answers yet, just one of the things that we happen to notice. So some operational considerations if you're thinking about going this route. The big one is safety. If you see in the handout towards the back, there's a PP selection chart that we put together in-house. And those are not just typical Tyvek suits, they're acid resistant. They're wearing boots that are also acid resistant. The material, primarily because of the hydrogen peroxide, it's such a strong oxidizer, it requires a little more caution when you're dealing with this. And so if you're looking at that PPE chart thinking, wow, do these guys really suit up like that? Yeah, we really do. This was a tote change-out that we were working on. And, you know, that may look like we're going a little overboard, but there is a respiration risk. And when you're changing a tote out, this section of hose between the tote and the header does retain some peracetic acid. So we know that our employees will be exposed. There's no way around it. They're going to be exposed. So we take the necessary precautions to protect them. So safety is a big one. Temperature, like I said, we think there may be something there that we need to be concerned with. We're just not sure. We don't have enough data yet. So we'll see what happens this summer and next winter. In our system, if you have utility water, in our system, we do carry a residual all the way through. Peracetic had told us, you know, usually after about 40 minutes of detention time, you probably won't see a residual. That has not proved to be the case in our situation. Your mileage may vary. It's just something you need to be aware of. Compatible materials. Everything here is 316L stainless. You can use, I think it's HDPE. Chris
Yes.
Jepson.
Yes.
HDPE?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they like up at Berkeley Heights, and it works great for them. We just went a different route. But you do have to be mindful of compatible materials. Again, it's a very strong oxidizer. So if you get it on your leather work boots, you may have a problem. It may spontaneously combust. So you have to be mindful of the compatible materials. Something that we found we didn't need to be concerned with, there was a little bit of concern about pH suppression in the final effluent. It was not measurable. If there was a difference. Switching from chlorine to P.A.A, we did not see a difference. DO, we saw no suppression of DO. There was some concern about that. If there is a difference, we can't measure it. It's not there. And I know I'm forgetting something else. I'm sorry. Safety. Oh yeah, the acid-resistant material. And I think that's about all we have. We wanted to leave. I'm sorry. Oh yeah. Sorry. The pocket colorimeter. So there is no approved method for P.A.A. residual analysis under 40 CFR 136. There isn't one. However, you can use the pocket colorimeter that you're used to using with the same pillow packs that you're used to using. It's in our work plan, in our approved work plan from DEP, and then you multiply the result by 1.07. And I understand now that that's become enshrined in the Berkeley Heights permit. Is that correct, Chris?
Correct.
Yes. So in their permit, they're using peracetic acid for their disinfection, and they are monitor and report only. Again, not an approved method of 40 CFR 136, but it is approved in their permit. We expect to see the same thing when we eventually install our permanent system and get the permit modification. So we deliberately kept this short because we thought there might be some interest in this, some questions that came up, especially if there are folks here last year on the Berkeley Heights thing. So I think we still have some time. Yes, we do. We still have some time.
What effect on pH do you have?
The effect on pH from peracetic acid,
Yeah.
if there is one, it's immeasurable in our
Do you
effluent.
have a low pH because it's an acid?
Nope, we did not see that. We tracked the pH in the post-air tank, post-aeration tank. No, I'm sorry, in the, no, secondary effluent, the clarifier. We tracked the pH from the secondary clarifier effluent and the final effluent, and they tracked together. But there was no suppression of pH.
There's no correlation though with the temperature changes, and, up and down, cold, hot. You don't see it
Not outside the normal variation that we're used to seeing.
because we have a history of
Okay.
pH with
Okay.
fluctuating temperature.
Yeah, I mean, not, but what I'm getting at is that, yeah, there's normal fluctuations, but we did not observe any fluctuations that we could say were because of the PAA. It was the same fluctuations that we would have seen dosing with chlorine.
You said all of your analyses were non-detect?
For the bromodichloromethane,
Right.
non-detect.
Did you guys think about maybe reducing the dose to see at the point where you might start to detect something since it wasn't a permit parameter right now?
Adam and I certainly did. Within the 6-month period of the approved work plan, we weren't able to do that. Now that we're outside of it, we would love to do that. Joel's our licensed operator. He has some different thoughts on that. As the summer comes, yes, we would love to titrate that dose and see. I don't think there will ever come a point, though, where we see bromodichloromethane present. It's not present in our influent. The bromodichloromethane is being generated because you have the humic acids that are just naturally there in the wastewater. When those humic acids combine with chlorine, that's what forms the bromodichloromethane. So remember, we did 7 sample points for a year, once a month, and the first sample point was just upstream of the chlorination point, and that was non-detect, consistently non-detect for bromodichloromethane for that whole year. It's not present until you add
Are you
chlorine.
seeing anything downstream of chlorination?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. As soon as you add the chlorine, boom, as soon as you add it, the bromodichloromethane is formed right away, immediately.
So you'd really have to test there to see about whether or not you non-detect or not, and then you're going to violate your permit.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
If you wanted to really know what dose you can lower it down to,
Mhm.
you'd have to test it after chlorination, and then you
Yeah,
have a
right,
chance on
right.
violating the permit.
Right. We don't anticipate ever turning chlorine on again. We're on peracetic acid now, and
Oh, okay.
we've awarded a contract for design already.
Mhm.
So I'm instructions, but we don't intend to turn chlorine on ever
Okay.
again.
Has that unknown growth caused any other problems in your plant?
Adam, you want to speak to that?
You have a little bit with your utility water. You're seeing a little bit of snails that are growing in some of the pipes, but other than that, not really. Just a little bit of growth that wasn't present when chlorine was active.
Back in 2010, the city of Millville did a study on peracetic acid in supplementing a UV system that was struggling. And we ended up that we had the same growth you had, but it caused a maintenance nightmare, clogging up the recycle water system and all the spray nozzles and screens and everything else.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
We are seeing it a little bit in the strainers and things of that.
Yeah, the strainer on the utility water system, yeah, that's probably getting cleaned more often than
Yeah,
it
we
was
were at the
before.
point where it was clogging up within like an hour to 2 hours.
Wow.
It was a maintenance nightmare.
Okay, we're not there. It hasn't been that bad.
Between that, the spray nozzles to clean the belts on the belt filter presses, it was a nightmare. We ended up stopping it.
Yeah. We haven't seen that. Anything else?
What's the concentration that you're using?
Help me out. It's
15%.
15%. That's 15%.
Acetic.
15% acetic, 22% hydrogen peroxide, and then it's weird. It's an equilibrium mixture. So when you have the acetic acid and the hydrogen peroxide in the right combination, it forms peracetic acid in addition to the other two chemicals. So it's
Just curious because it's at 60%, it's a PSN chemical.
I'm sorry.
At 60%, it's a PSN chemical.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely more aggressive as an oxidizer. You definitely need to be more mindful of safety of this material and not ever be complacent or take shortcuts. Yeah.
Have you seen increased corrosion in the welding system?
Increased corrosion?
Yeah, to either the concrete or the steel.
So far, we haven't.
No, no. And again, where are we at 7 months?
You're not that far into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, anything?
No, we've had no issues.
Yeah, and you guys have been at it for like a year and a half?
Yes.
Yeah. Surprisingly.
How about cost comparison to hypo and SBS for dechlorination?
Okay.
Dechlorine.
I do have those numbers. Oh, here we go. In 2016, we spent, in round numbers, $90,000 on hypo and SBS. And if we annualize our 9-month usage of the peracetic acid, we're at $57,000 a year. So about a 36% savings. Now, part of that, of course, is that in our system, we're flow pacing for the peracetic acid. We never flow paced for chlorine, so I'm sure we were overdosing a little bit on chlorine and overdosing on SBS a little bit. So I'm sure some of that savings comes from being able to titrate the dose properly so that we're not overdosing. But yes, this is going to be a significant cost savings over the years.
Can you repeat those numbers, the savings?
Yeah, annually, it's about $90,000 for chlorine and SBS and about $57,000 in our application. We're averaging about 3 mgd.